Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me. I have a couple of really loud and flashy palettes to talk about today. They are the two big palettes from Tarte for this upcoming holiday season. One is exclusive to Ulta, the other is exclusive to Sephora, and as you can see they've got kind of a pineapple sort of destination theme with their holiday collection this year. And I basically just want to answer the question for you today, which one is best in my opinion? And this is not solely just I swatched them out and here's what I think. Like, I actually have tried these. I've done multiple looks with each, and so we're going to be looking at the quality of the product inside these palettes. Each one comes with a few extras, and the way those extras are incorporated also affects my opinion on them, and just the overall value, the giftability of these things. We're going to look at everything. And the little tutorial demo in this video is going to be using this Sephora palette because I have actually already incorporated this guy into a video. Sorry, when I hold it, I just got to do that. It's going to make those sequins go. This was used in the video where my family chooses my makeup, so I will link to that below if you want to see the eyeshadow look and some of the other things getting used in that palette. But this Tarte palette is going to cost you $49 and the Sephora one is $59. I would assume here that the added expense is probably the more deluxe type packaging. Everything about this palette is very solid, and here I'm not saying this isn't solid and sturdy and whatnot, but it's got more of that like cardboardy feel. I mean, it's definitely been coated around with something, but when you open it up, it's not just a firm plastic. So inside this Sephora palette, you're getting 24 eyeshadows, a little mirror over here, and 4 face products, including a highlight, a bronzer, and 2 blushes. I would say if they weren't going to put an actual like solid, you know, panel of some sort in between here, I guess they did about as good as they could do because they've got the barrier. It's a plastic sheet, but it's a little thicker than some of those just, you know, layers that come on top of a brand new palette, and it's perforated here at the side, so if you really don't want to mess with that, you could take it out. I will continue to keep it because it's more important to me that I don't have product falling out between the eyeshadows and into the blushes and vice versa, because I can already see it now that this palette has had some use and the shadows have gotten kind of worked up a little bit. I can see that there's some powder products sitting on either side of this sheet, and so I think it's important that that's there and each side isn't getting kind of contaminated with the other product. Contaminated is kind of a strong word, but you know, I don't want the flecks to mix. And also, while we're just kind of talking packaging here, the 3 extras that come with this are like a tinted lip balm, which is what I'm wearing on my lips, very, very sheer, a mini Lights Camera Lashes mascara, and a Sex Kitten eyeliner. And those will come to you in the box just wrapped up in some tissue paper, which doesn't bother me one bit that they're not included in this palette, because you know what? You're gonna go through these things, especially a mini mascara. Okay, a full-size mascara is gonna last you around 3 months. Plan on a mini mascara lasting a lot less than that. So do I need a permanent home for a mini mascara within my gifted palette? I would say no. Let's just keep these things individual, and if you're traveling with all this stuff, this can all go in a makeup bag. But in my opinion, it doesn't need to be housed in the palette. Therefore, we've got a slightly more streamlined palette. I mean, it's shaped like a pineapple. If a priority in your life is having a pineapple-shaped palette, then maybe you're not like world's most practical person. But all in all, I think the pineapple palette, as you'll see as I go on to describe this one, is a more practical design, and it overall is more streamlined. Now we've got a matte bronzer. One of the blushes is matte, this kind of mauve-y color. This corally blush has a slight bit of a satin finish. It's really beautiful. And then the highlight is kind of peachy golden, and it does have some kind of coarse shimmery flecks, like maybe even a few bits of glitter in there. And I feel like it's kind of a non-issue if you're willing to buff it into the skin, because I feel like I've got a really gorgeous look on my cheeks, but the riffraff, as I sometimes say, will buff away if you don't just like lay it across the cheeks as a layer of makeup sitting on top of your skin and actually work it in some. Then I think you'll really like the effect with that highlight. But let's back it up. Let's show the bronzer going on. I feel like this bronzer has the potential to be pretty deep. It is also kind of warm, so that might not be everyone's cup of tea, but in a light capacity on my skin, I think it looks pretty good. And I feel like I can use that softly in the hollows of the cheeks and get some light definition there. Today for my blush, I used the mauve color, and I feel like this has plenty of intensity as well. Both of these blushes could be pretty bold on the cheeks, and I think could account for a lot of different skin tones who may use this palette. But I really like this tone. I think it applies smoothly and evenly, and I've also had great luck with the coral blush in this palette too. And then, as I described with the highlight, I think you just have to sort of work it into the skin a bit more, buff it in, and some of the shimmery flecks won't be so much of a factor, and you will have a beautiful glow on the skin. So all in all, I would say I'm pretty pleased with the face side of this palette. Now moving over to the eyeshadows, 24 shadows and 11 of these are matte. In the Ulta palette, only 8 are matte. And I noticed something as soon as I got this and first opened it up. It has that lightly kind of sweet, almost vanilla-ish scent that I've smelled in some of the different Tartelette palettes. And I feel like the overall quality of the shadows is very comparable to those palettes that Tarte has put out in the past. Now, sometimes you wonder with holiday sets, like, what are they just throwing in there? Is it gonna be as good as some of those non-limited edition palettes that the brand makes? And I feel like these are, all in all, quite smooth. Some of the best mattes are some of the mid-tones, like they feel absolutely buttery, creamy, just like some of the things from the Tartelette palette. And there are some beautiful metallic shades in here as well. I wouldn't say I've noticed any dud colors in this Sephora palette, but one thing to keep in mind is that some of your deeper mattes do have a little bit drier feel to the touch, but the only way I really feel affected by that is by touching it with my hand, because they still apply fine to my skin. This is one of those situations where, is it a forearm palette? Is it an eye palette? How does it go on actually worked into a look? So this color, this deep purple shade, and then we have a really dark, like plum color there too. There's a little feeling of dryness in all of those, but yet, as you can see, with just barely any pressure, they are quite pigmented, and I have no problem just kind of patting, building up slowly and working them into an eye look. The mid-tone mattes, however, do have a creamier feel, and then no real issue for me as far as these shimmers go. I feel like they're very smooth and really very consistent. But overall, in terms of the color scheme, like when I look at this, I think classic Tarte holiday. You know, they're gonna give you some warmth, they're gonna give a lot of neutral, they'll splash in a couple of blues and some dark plums, and there you go. Don't you look at this and kind of feel like, yep, that looks about right for Tarte holiday. That's about what they do. But I do feel there's a nice variety of looks. The other day over the weekend, I worked in this color here, this greenish shade, which I think is really beautiful and kind of unique, because at a glance you might think, oh, one of those teal turquoisey colors, but there's a little more greeny depth in it, and I really like that all over the lid. It even looks nice with some of the burgundy and deeper plummy shades sort of overlapping it. You can get an easy warm look, which is what I went for today. I've got to turn myself into a scarecrow later tonight. So I'm going to be building on this look, but I need to keep it kind of neutral, and I'll just walk you through what I did for the look today. I used this sort of mid-tone, really warm brown in my crease, got that really buffed out, and then I used this rich copper color, kind of reminds me of Good Vibes from the Once, and I worked that into my crease as well. And even though that has some shimmer, when you're applying it with a fluffy brush, you just get this nice kind of rich rust added to your look. And then I brought in a bare brush, got that all blended out, and I used our light matte creamy shade, which is very, very creamy, and use that up under the brow as my highlight. And then on the lid, I went over to the soft shimmery gold. And this one, I don't know, if anything is a little bit dusty in this palette, it might be this one shade, but still I think super manageable. And I got that on the innermost part of the lid, and then continued on with the real true gold in this palette. And by the way, all of these do have names. They're on the back of the palette, so I didn't realize that actually. But the gold is gonna go over the bulk of my eyelid, and then I love bringing in like a winey color to sort of overlap. So I used the uppermost wine color in this palette, the lighter of the two. I patted that on the outer part of my lid and kind of worked that into the crease. And then I used our shimmery rust again on the lower lash line with a pencil brush. Then we're gonna move forward and keep using this kit, because the Sex Kitten liner is in here. And yes, it does have a little cat at the top of it. I find that to be an important detail. But this is just a felt tip liner. I'm not sure if this is full size or not. Like, it seems maybe a little shorter than some other liners, but it's certainly not a sample size. So anyway, it's easy to use. It's really, really black. And I think this could do winged liner really easily. I just used it straight across my lash line. I also used a light liner in my lower inner rim. And then the mascara that they put in here for the mini is a tried and true classic from Tarte. It's Lights Camera Lashes. If you've never tried this mascara, this is a really, really top-notch one. And sometimes I knock samples because I feel like there's not enough room for the brush to come through, but this sample is long enough to where you have a little wand space here. You've got a little room for that brush to pull out and feel like it's gotten as fully coated as it might if it were a full size. I've used a lot of Lights Camera Lashes mascara, and I feel like this is behaving pretty much on par with the full size. So I did a couple of coats of that. I put on a little Clump Crusher water resistant on my lower lashes just because I really need good staying power today. And that is my eye look. It came together, I think, very effortlessly effortlessly. You could stick to a more pinky purple route from this palette as we head south here a little bit. You could go more bluish green. You could keep it very cool and smoky. So I do see a lot of options in this palette, but the last little piece of the puzzle here is the lip color. And it's kind of like one of Tarte's tinted balms. I have a few of these in full sizes. The shade name is just pink and it's very sheer. And it has a little bit of a minty like feel and scent. Ultra natural, super duper shiny on the lips. I really can't think of anybody who couldn't use something like this, you know? It's just a lightly tinted balm and there's really nothing wrong with that. So I will admit to you, and this is coming from someone who tries the holiday sets every year, someone who does own a ton of palettes. When I first laid eyes on the color selection here, I thought, yeah, that's kind of typical Tarte type layout here for us. Nothing's real crazy. They'll throw us a bone with a couple of blues or different colors in there, but overall this is sort of what Tarte does year after year. Some people you may gift to who have never had a Tarte palette, that little uniqueness factor that I just mentioned there probably won't matter at all to them. But the design of this palette is super unique and I think very different from anything I own. I most definitely do not have anything shaped like a pineapple. It's fun, it's super solid. I mean, it seems to be highly durable. It would be a great travel palette and it would be fun to give to somebody who you know loves to travel a lot. Maybe they've got their condo in Destin or something and then you give them this and it would be that makeup kit plus sort of a little sentimental value there. And it's different too because there are a lot of holiday things that take on more of a classic Christmassy theme, and this is more of a destination theme. But to me, I love the fact that they kept the extras out because you probably will run out of all of these before you run out of what's in the palette. So I don't think we need to take up space and make the palette any more bulky. The sheet in the middle, like I said, I think it's about as good as they're gonna do here for us. And the perforation is pretty strong. I don't get the sense that that's gonna come undone unless you purposely want that gone, but I would say leave it there because I'm noticing it catching fallout from both sides. Who can't use an extra mascara, a liner pen, and a lip balm, so I think all of the extras for this kit are very user-friendly, so I do think it's a good gift. Now let's dig into this Ulta palette, and again, I will link to the video where I actually did try this on, but this gives you a little pineapple theme right here in the front. It's a magnetic closure here, and so you pull that open, and we've got our extras housed in here, which I do think makes for a bulkier palette. What do you do once you've used up your Maneater mascara sample after a month? I think that whole plastic insert that's holding that stuff will come out. So if you wanted it all gone, it's still a little bit of wasted space over there, but you could remove it. But here you're getting a Maneater mascara sample. They also give you a Maneater brush tip liquid liner. And then your lip mini is actually formed like a lipstick, but this is very sheer also. Maybe a bit warmer pink than what I've got on right now, but it's kind of odd that this has the formed lipstick shape, yet it seems really similar to the texture of what I've got on. If you're anything like me, you're gonna find this to be kind of a pain going forward. This clear sheet, you know, it's one of those thin clear sheets here. It's harder to keep track of this when it's not connected to the palette. And if you do, you're gonna have your blush, bronzer, and highlight closing in continually on top of the eyeshadows. The bronzer here does have some shimmer. It's a little lighter than the one that's in the Sephora palette. The blushes, I thought they kind of gave us two in sort of a cool pink color family. There's nothing really wrong with them, but I don't feel like they're as intense and rich as what's in the Sephora palette. And then the highlight is really nice here. It's very, very light, shimmery, no flecks of glitter in that one. It's a really nice highlight. You're getting one more eyeshadow in here, so that makes a total of 25, but only 8 of them are mattes. And even though the shadows in this palette do not have any sort of scent like the Sephora one does, which makes you kind of think back to some of their other Tarte lip palettes and whatnot, the overall texture of everything seems really similar. There were 2 shades in there. One is called Aloha and one called Resort. They're shimmer finish colors, and I thought they were very faint. But most everything else in here seems to apply and also swatch a lot like what's coming from the Sephora palette. In some ways, there are some definite similarities here, like you've got some warm, got some things going a little more pinky, and then a couple of greenish blues with those shades really being in the minority in the palette. But there are a few reasons why I like the color scheme better in the Sephora palette. Number 1, more mattes. Number 2, I think there's a more pronounced warm color scheme in that one. It's easier for me to look at that palette, and if I want to get a warm kind of pumpkin-y eye look, it's very simple to see how I'm going to get that. With the Ulta palette, there are some warm shades, but there's a little less of them, and getting a full warm eye look isn't quite as clear. Also, reason why I like the Sephora one better is more purple, like a really nice, rich, deep purple, and a lot of supporting cast member shades that can help help complete that purpley look. Also, this is completely personal opinion, but this time of year, I'm not really reaching for the aqua turquoise type shadows. They have a really bold one, which has a very nice texture and feel in this Ulta palette. But you go back and look at the Sephora shades, the green is deeper, it's richer. The overall color scheme in everything in that Sephora palette just seems a bit more rich. There are, again, a few more mattes in the Sephora palette and really no dud shades. And in this Ulta palette, like I said, there are a few that really are kind of barely their shadows. And really personal preference here. Some people might like to have all those details put in a palette side by side with everything in here. And I don't really have any complaints about the liner, mascara, lip color that's in here because you use that stuff, you got your cheek colors here, your eyeshadows. It really is offering you a full look. I would just prefer that those were left out of the palette so we could have a little more streamlined palette because overall this is pretty bulky. Whether it's storing it at home, putting it out on your vanity, or trying to travel with this, I do think your products are probably going to be pretty nicely protected. I do think it's pretty durable, but it does take up a lot of space. Here, I mean, yeah, it's shaped like a pineapple, but it's still kind of practical, you know? So guys, if you were trying to decide between these two palettes, that's just my take. I think the Sephora, while it is going to cost you a little extra, I think the packaging is much more luxe and impressive. It's also not oversized. I enjoy the overall color scheme a bit more, not just the eyeshadows, but also the face colors as well. You get some excellent extras thrown in. And I did a look that I enjoyed with this palette in that past video, and I don't see it as some big dud product, but there's some things in the design that makes it not quite so user-friendly. And if we're choosing between the two, I think the Sephora definitely comes out on top. But thank you guys for your time. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.